and other vulnerable people.
I'm Mike Craig with news on the Blaze Radio Network. Truth lives here.
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. So happy you could make us part of your day today. My show revolves around the 4 L's: leadership, love, life, and lineage, and the ongoing story of real music made by real artists. The cycle of birth and death. Who are you born to? What kind of family is it? Is it love or hate or both? Love and hate, fear and insecurity, stone genius, 1 step forward, 3 steps back, and 2 sideways. I'm thankful for it all. I'm thankful to be surrounded by people today who feel the emotions that drive the cycle of life and death. My guests today have been preparing themselves for peace in different ways. It could be through silent retreat for 3 years on a mountain of diamonds. It could be the resiliency of a kid from New York City who was dreaming and connecting with his multidimensional self as early as 5 years old. A prodigy drummer who hung in those parks in Brooklyn banging the drum all day as the side paneling all fell off and he could find his true nature. He saw the worst of the human animal and became a beacon of light, inspiration, and perspective without the need for adulation. It could be a Renaissance musician who was partially responsible for the rebirth and reincarnation of improvisational melodic soul in an acoustic trio setting, playing old barns like the Somerville Theater or the Middle East with Rock-A-Lam Bob Moses, playing free-spirited music, connecting with his multidimensional self. This host used to refer to it as out of body, but in the cycle of birth and death, you either check out or you live. You know you are alive if you feel pain, when you are hurt or are the hurter. You know you're alive when you have people floating in a sea of liquid acid, spinning wheels in a circus of sound in Maine and Vermont and Kentucky, where the finest bourbon is made to numb you from being alive. Because being alive means you have to accept who you are. As we have seen with icons, they can toe that line of invincibility and then succumb to the lashings of public castration for secrets they may or may not have been hiding for years. We are not infallible creatures, which is why I have convened this panel. How to access your multidimensional being is essential to peace, or getting as close to peace as you can. My show is about elevating the truths of leadership, how to love and not just be loved. When does the heart speak for itself? In my mind, it's when life is put in perspective by natural events. It could be addiction. It could be the falling apart and repair of an ill-fated trip. It could be the dissolution of a partnership or fatherhood. My guests today have lived musical lives trying to balance between the elevated state of magic and the perfunctory realization of coming off the road to clean up dog droppings in the backyard. You are told over and over how good you are, how spiritual you are, how patient you are. How do you do that? The questions become exhausting because any multidimensional being knows they are struggling with the balance and need mentors to get closer to peace, to be satisfied with feelings and getting together to play when it feels right, play in a group and listen to each other, play melodies of the song that the bass and drums and guitar and piano or Vox organ can dance around and begin to feel peace. So much is promised, very little is guaranteed. One guarantee is that I live for moments like this, where we can celebrate getting closer to the truth while we're putting in time on planet Earth. Tisziji Munoz, Lam Sobo John Medeski, and Will Duncan, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you.
Tisziji, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's good to be back with you and the people who can hear these.
Yes.
Who can hear this way.
And Will, welcome to you too.
Okay.
Hey, Lam Sobo, I wanted to ask you a question. Can you explain to the audience the first time you met Tisziji Munoz and what your impression was of his music?
I think the first time I met Tisziji was for a recording that Rock Alarm Bob Moses helped coordinate in Boston almost 30 years ago, at this point, 25 years ago, for it was on Coltrane's birthday, and it was with an incredible group of musicians all from the Boston area, Jerry Berganti, John Lockwood, second drummer Ben Whitman, another keyboard player Brad Whitfield. I'd heard about Tisziji from Bob from Rock Alarm, and yeah, my first impression was, this guy, he was a master.
No, you sound good, man. Hey, Tisziji?
Okay. Yeah.
Tisziji, how are you?
Good.
Hey, I was hoping just you could touch on a moment. A comrade of yours recently left us as Joe Bonner. He passed away.
Oh, yes.
Could you talk a little bit about your relationship with Joe?
Well, we had a relationship with Phil Sanders, so we had no problems. He's a sweet cat, and he's a good player, someone who Phil was very confident of playing with. And we didn't hang, so to speak. I rarely hang with anybody, except when we're playing and we have an opportunity to work and get deep. Then we're hanging in deepness, by my terminology. That, to me, is the only way to hang, is in the depths of awareness, intelligence, and heartfulness. So I've done that with all the musicians to whatever degree they were open to that. I think that's the place where the music should come from. The deepest hang, hanging in the infinite potential of our intelligence and spirituality. And then we're creating something, let's say, purifying and perhaps even healing for the peeps. If we can get to that place where we're okay being that free of our conditioning and karma, then we can make a real contribution to what's happening. I'm not saying at the same time that those who can't be that free aren't making a contribution. They are making a contribution, doing the best they can. So we have to give credit to them. But I think for some of us who have this kind of access, maybe it's a different access, but it's I call the spiritual access, then it's up to us to bring from that world and bring it into this world. But despite our suffering, despite our karma and culturing, and despite our comfort in the material world, we have to bring something from the spiritual. That's our responsibility. I think that's the commission every musician and artist has, regardless of whether it's music, painting, or writing, or whatever it might be, dancing, or just living. We have to try and make a contribution, and I think it's a balancing force. Once you're able to make that contribution of access by way of accessing the spiritual and making that as much a part of what it is you're doing and living.
Well, we're while we get them back on the horn, joined here by compadre Will Duncan. Will, it's great to have you in studio. It's great to see you after this hiatus, not hiatus, this retreat. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. It's great to be here.
Tell me about reintegrating yourself in Tucson right now. What are you doing right now to sort of just get back into the flow?
Well, I did a 3-year silent retreat that ended in April, and then right after that retreat ended, I began to travel around and teach and speak, and so that was basically 7 months of traveling and a lot of talking. And so now I'm trying to recalibrate myself a little bit, get used to kind of reintegrated back into the culture.
How challenging is that?
I keep thinking I should be over it by now, and I should be, reintegrated. But there's these new levels keep hitting me of, I think I'm fully, and we were talking earlier, Jake, that there's the beauty about retreat is you touch on a real deep substance. you touch on really kind of what Tisziji was just talking about. Tisziji is he's talking about just hanging on the deepest level, and that's really what retreat is. You're hanging on the deepest level, and then to come back into the world is a little bit about like being stuck in Disneyland and there's no exit, and so there's this longing to want to be hanging on the deepest level, both with people and with spirit and with the natural world.
And we're rejoined by our guests here. We'll get back to it later, but Tisziji? Lam Sobo? You there? You there?
Yes, I'm here now.
Yep, here.
All right.
Here.
All right, Tisziji, I don't know how we look.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we were starting to get a little deep, the phone was disconnected.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. When we get too deep, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me...
Yeah.
Tisziji, I wanted to ask you about... just please explain to the audience music of peace, not trying to get towards peace, but music of peace, and how I was watching an interview with you and Rockalam, and I haven't spent a lot of time personally with you, but what was inspiring to me was that he said you lead your life the way in that peace, and I'm still very much a work in progress with that. I mean, and I want you to talk about a defining moment. Was it the 5 drums and the blur of energy? When was it that you were able to play music of peace?
Well, I wouldn't say I was playing music of peace, but I had found peace in the sound when I was young. I have to say I seem to have been born into it, as many are, but don't look at it that way. And then from this peace, this kind of vibration, let's say resonance, then you want to play from there, whatever it is you have to play, so that despite the form and the structure, which most people are addicted to and assume that that's all there is to say about music, and if it's classical and composed a certain way, then that's beautiful music, or if it's composed a different way, it might not be as beautiful music. Structure aside, and we're talking about peace coming as a resonation or radiance from the heart itself, then what we're singing, what we're playing, and sometimes what we're talking and what we're doing has that exuding peace coming from it. So we have to be peace in order to share peace and give peace and peace. You've got to be peace first, heart first, deepness first. That means beneath or beyond the culturing and the din and the noise of everybody else's ideas and opinions, everybody else's experience. We have to get deeper than that so we know what our experience is with the spiritual, and then work from there and bring that out through our music, our speech, our actions, our interactions, and just our presence, being that. And this is important. That's why I refer to yoga as a means of doing it. But a person can get that resonance by anything they love to do that is healing for them. They have to perceive it as healing for themselves. And then try to go deeper into the healing feeling, like being with a baby, being kind to your pet, being nice to your mate. Sweetness is a key to it, and good spirit, nature is a key to it. But a lot of people are so involved in the time world and so influenced and manipulated by the time world of stress and anxiety that it's not easy for them to stop, get out of the addiction to the time world, and go into a deeper spiritual space world where there's healing and relief and balance.
Lam Sobo, how at peace? Well, are you playing music of peace now? Do you feel like are you consistently trying to evolve? I just really want to know like where your head is at, because you've done, I mean, your legacy is already kind of there. You've been doing it for years now and many different levels. But the idea of calming your mind, and obviously like we've all been dealt a hand, some good, some bad, but I just would like to know from you, psychically, how Tisziji has helped you cultivate peace.
For me, music has always been about healing and about taking people to a place that, makes them better and have a better life and, inspires them to live better, And peace is, I guess peace is sort of that's the ultimate, that's the ultimate. But yes, working with Babu is really, I guess for me, it's it's helped me focus. And I think, at this point in my life, it's like, really, I feel like in a certain way, I was only able to get so far, in terms of, what I've been doing and the kind of music I've been playing. And, I think there's a limit to, like, what you can create given the environment you're playing in and, the kind of music you're playing. And so, for me, it's like working with Tisziji, it's just like going deeper, and just being reminded of the truth, for me, and reminded of, like, the purest approach. Yeah, so, I'm definitely a work in progress here.
No, I mean, it's also, I wanted, Tisziji, how much do you and John, I caught this in one of our earlier interviews, but I think you guys can talk about the intuitive learning of music, like what are the drums saying to you, or what is the piano saying to Lam Sobo, as opposed to the relentless, I mean, you guys, the books that are all written, all the curriculums that are there to how to play, when in fact, what is the instrument saying to you? Can you touch on the intuition that you try to bring to music?
Are you asking me or Tisziji?
Tisziji first and then Lam Sobo.
Yeah. Well, I think in this case, there's no looking for intuition. I can say from my subjective viewpoint that for me, playing music is a form of sleeping, going to sleep, and meditating. So it's already that. That's how you got to it. I was young, so that kind of drumming, meditational understanding, which is like really being attuned to a certain kind of sound, vibration that calms the mind, and that says like sleep, like going into an instantaneous state of peace. And we can train ourselves to do that. People can learn certain self-hypnotic techniques or relaxation techniques to get to it, so that as soon as I hear a sound. That's why the sound I get from my guitar is very critical and important. So it could be rhythm, which is vibration, and sound is another vibration from the guitar. Melodic tone sometimes has something to do with I hear a certain tonality or pitch or nuance in there, and then it calms my mind and it sends me to another place. I'm not sure whether everybody has the same experience, but I think everyone has access to that capability. I think as spirit souls, awake beings already, being heart essence to begin with, and that's what I mean by spirit. We can link. We're already that. We have to just go deeper to access that. Sometimes music can do it, other things can do it. So I'm already in this intuitive state to a high degree. My physical body, though, is not always up to the demand that is put upon me by playing with the giants such as Lam Sobo, Ram and Don Page, and other players that I've played with, Pharaoh Sanders and all the great players, and some of my students, teaching them, passing that wisdom on to them to go peace first, get the peace first, and then that can open up the intuition. If you're open, the idea of peace is openness, and then you open, you relax into it, so you're ready for the sound. And then the sound, when you start to play, then that opens up another dimension. The dimension of the universe of sound that is also born of peace, but you want to get to the peace of that sound that you're hearing, but that is where the sound is coming from. So there are different layers that need to be melted off as we go deeper into the sound. I think Lam Sobo understands that it's really a melting down system, a burning off of conditioning, going deeper like as soon as possible, and then letting that do the playing. When you get to that place, and that does the playing. So you play to the point where you allow it to play.
Tisziji, this is Will here, and just to say I'm honored to be on the radio with both of you guys, and I appreciate, especially Tisziji, all the clarity you bring into the world. You're talking about
thank you.
You're talking about playing in terms of peacefulness, and there's that aspect of it. But one thing that I notice, especially in meditation, there's a kind of common misconception in popular culture that meditation is about just becoming peaceful, and really, as you know, it's about deconstruction. Deconstructing.
Well, openness, exactly. Openness. That's what I meant by the meltdown.
Yeah, okay.
Meltdown and the transcending of the culturing, so that you can get to where it's really coming from underneath everything. See?
Yeah.
Silence, maybe. To get to that place where you don't exist, where it's pure. The pure itself can come through. And if you're practicing traditional teachings and meditation, they're really helping you to recover your native Buddha nature, not something else. See, so we want to get to that. I call it Hyuda nature.
Yeah.
To complement the Buddha, which is about the mind, let's say, and going back to the original Buddha, let's say, constructs and the legend. Then we talk about Gautama state as a person who was a nobleman first, and he went through that, and then he had to study with practitioners, and he learned, and then he had to let go of that to get to that place, and all of that's good. But in my case, I didn't have to go through that. Being born through a psychic line gave me an advantage, not of betterment, but of, let's say, responsibility to be more spiritual by nature, not by culture. So we're talking about coming back to the spiritual because of culture and materialism, or like learning music. I didn't have to learn music the way other people have to learn it, and that's my curse. Yeah. Because when I don't play, when I'm certain things, then it pains me. I don't have the conditioning other people have, and so I have to play this way.
When I was a kid, my spiritual teacher had me start working with developmentally disabled and physically disabled children. And later, as I got older, I asked him why he had me do that, and he said to really teach me purity of heart. And I know that you raised a physically disabled, I believe, cerebral palsy. Your son had cerebral palsy, and I'm wondering, wondering how that affected. What effect did that have on your own discovery of purity of heart? Did that have some kind of? Was he a type of teacher to you in raising him?
Yes, in a sense. I think what you're mentioning is very, very beautiful because it has to do with purpose. See, the musician is given the sound as their firstly their own healing, heart healing, and heart balancement, and that's mind balance at the same time. And so we're really talking about an almost practically non-musical, non-materialistic sense of this process. But we're going back to the native sense of it. So in the case of Rebizar, my son, with all his problems, the only thing, because he has a certain kind of genius for music, the only thing that could help him despite his whole life was sound and music. And then it was certain music. When I would play something pretty, he'd say, no, Bapu, not that. If I play something a little bit more avant-garde, he said, yeah, that's it, I need to laugh. What you're playing makes me laugh. If you go out, we use the word out, he said, that makes me laugh, that makes me feel happy because it's free of the classical. And so he had the intuition originally that there was something free of structure, that if it's coming from the right place, which is what we as practitioners need to get in touch with so that we become, let's say, the God point, the source point, the reality, and it all begins anew in us because we have access to the infinite. And so it's up to us to access the infiniteness so we become then, if we can get to that place where we sense the balance that enables us to be master of the service. Master of the service of let's say, givingness to other people. So we need to master the service with their complaints and their conversation, and then we as artists, but we as priests as well as yogis and mediums have to really use the music to help them, and I mean that in a very specific manner where it's medicine specific rather than a general, let's say, jazz concert which heals the needs of people for entertainment, not always a spiritual upliftment or transcension. So it's up to us to know when we come out to do what kind of thing, which is why I play with Lam Sobo, who's shamanistic in his basis as well. He's into healing. So he makes it easy as pie for me to say, we're going deep in 2 seconds, and he's responding harmonically, rhythmically, melodically. With all of his knowledge, he's qualified then with his vast knowledge to be able to respond that is work from the infinite to develop the finite medicinal solution for the moment in that particular tune. So we need to learn all this to bring it to the piece so that we become then channels. Yes, I'm getting excited here. This is exciting.
No, I knew. Tisziji, before we continue, because we're talking.
I'm done. Yes, I'm done.
You're done. You're done. No, let's play a clip of music here that features Mr. Munoz, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay?
Yes. Thank you, Duncan.
Yeah.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show is sponsored in part by the Stereo Hospital, with over 40 years of experience repairing all types of home audio equipment, from vintage table radios to digital surround sounds, at 4044 East Speedway inside Metronome Music. It's the place to take your turntable, CD player, just about anything that has to do with a stereo. Call 722-4610. That's the number to call. You know, it's okay. I mean, we're getting heavy into this and having a hard time holding all three of you. Lam Sobo, we love you. Thank you for coming back. Tisziji.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back.
Okay, Tisziji, that was you and John and Rockalam, and then a younger drummer who just is on fire. I don't know his name. Live at the Falcon. The Falcon.
Yes.
And that was the first part of the clip. Lam Sobo, I know you didn't hear that, but you've played enough live with Tisziji to know. Can you describe the feeling of hearing this sequencing of ideas from Tisziji, 4 minutes of just soloing, and then how do you feel inside when it's your turn to solo? I mean, are you at that point? How do you feel? Are you to talk to the audience about that, because you follow it up with an equally impressive thing, but that's not an easy thing to do.
Wow. Well, I don't think a whole lot when we're playing. I mean, the music, music really, I mean, I know this is corny. Music truly is language, and it speaks in its own way, and so I'm, really following every note to the best I can that Tisziji is playing, and, being in it. So when he winds his message up and leaves it open to me, I just am usually just in the energy of the moment and moving forward with whatever I feel, whatever comes out.
And you know what?
So it's really hard to. I can say in general, playing with CG definitely puts me in the space that I most love, playing music. When I was talking about when I was a kid, this sort of like when I had these little epiphanies of going to this sort of this otherworldly, peaceful kind of dream state. That's how I feel when I'm playing with the CG. And at the same time, I got to be on my toes, because the one thing I'll say about playing with him is, we get together and we've worked on his music, and I've helped him put together a little book of, one book of his incredible songs, and we get together and we work on things, and we'll even talk about something before the set, what we're going to do, and in the moment of the music as it's happening, things change, and it's really truly free music.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean, free doesn't just mean out, or free means free to go wherever it needs to go or wants to go, and yeah, it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, Rockalam told me, thank you for doing interviews about the unexplainable, and so I realize some of this stuff is extremely hard to put into words, but let's just, I want to play a Transcension Part 2 to CG. I want you to listen to Lam Sobo and then come back and talk about this, okay? That solo builds and builds and builds, and Tisziji, I don't know if you could hear that or not.
Yeah, that I could hear, and that's pretty indicative of what we do. And that means I'm saying yes to the encyclopedia of each individual's musical mind. Say yes, and then throw that out, and then go beyond that.
No, how has Lam Sobo gone beyond that? I think that's the most. One of the things that you talk about is moving beyond just what you know or what you keep going more. And
the infinite is there, so you keep going beyond, and that's the beauty of it, because we're talking about the brain having either brain or intelligence or spirit having infinite potential. And so it's like saying going beyond the universe. It's a concept. But when we're talking about the music, we're going to go beyond what's immediately memorable, right, memorized or known and present, and then go deeper. And then the individual starts to know when they're playing that they start at one point, and then not long after that, they're starting to go into the depths, and then other formulations and formations start to come up of themselves. And we go deeper. Then maybe the memory comes in a little bit, but everything is floating and hovering and being suspended and being burned and purified. So it's continual and advanced and increasing, progressive, let's say, intensification and pleasure. It's creative bliss. And the more you play, the more you feel it. So the idea is to get to that liberated state where everything you play is what it is.
Lam Sobo, I wanted to ask you how you feel. Do you have an opportunity to? I mean, mentoring is a people have different definitions, but since you've really reconnected and started to collaborate with Tisziji musically, how do you work with younger cats? Because you made a point earlier about how you and Tisziji, one of the most refreshing things is that there's not a lot of talking. My generation, we talk a lot, and there's a lot of micromanagement. So I'm wondering how you mentor younger cats based on kind of some of the stuff that Tisziji has helped you see and learn.
Well, I guess there actually is quite a bit of talking. What I was talking about in that one recording session, the way he led the recording session, but Tisziji explains a lot and talks a lot and expresses these ideas that some of what he's expressing now, and and every situation brings up certain angles and certain insights that he has, and I get a lot out of our conversations. It's like a lot. Sometimes it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in, and but like the music, it has an impact, and it has a vibration that resonates with me. And that's why I consider Tisziji to be one of my teachers.
Can you, based on what you've been hearing, Will, was there anything inspiring that came out of what you just heard? Because this was about as disjointed as you can get, but Tishiji's back.
Yeah. This is the jam you were talking about.
This is all improv.
No, Tisziji does not like jamming, does not do any of that. But anyway, Will, go ahead.
I can, of course, listen, it's all part of it. You understand. The idea is not to be afraid of it, tolerate it, but make good on it.
I told Lam Sobo to get near a landline. Listen, Will's got a question for you, Tisziji.
Tisziji,
go ahead.
You one time said, you mentioned that mechanics becomes your choke. And I think you're meaning that the too much technique becomes what defines you and limits your freedom.
Yes.
And what I'm wondering is how do you move from mechanics to freedom? Because you can't find freedom unless you have some skill or some mechanics.
Exactly. Great point, because then you have to go to feeling. You have to access feeling and begin to interpret feeling in terms of music. And so that's why I tell many people when they come to me, experience your tragedy, but then go to your instrument. Don't just hold on to it. Mm-hmm. Don't just leave it in you. There's a link. It's given to you to feel, so you take it straight to the instrument, whatever you're playing. For me, in the beginning, it was drums, and then it went to guitar and other instruments, so that you see the link. You see that pain and suffering are part of this mix of creating beauty and transcendence. And so then we see pain as liberation. We see suffering as liberation when we can recreate it, rewire it, so that, we have then, let's say, creativity that brings people healing and let's say, inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Tisziji, we're going to do this again. I didn't. Medeski, he's on I-95, and it's just not and I'm, but I got to tell you, man, the side paneling continues to fall off for me, and I attribute some of that to your spirit. I feel you in my heart. I feel you in my presence, in my soul, and I
love you. I love you too, man.
Love always. And we will connect very soon. I want to thank you so much for taking the time today on my show.
Thank you for your patience and your willingness to do this.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you, Tisziji.
Love always.
Okay, love always.
Bye-bye. So, folks, that is the Thanksgiving Day edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, and I just wanted to read my newest sponsor, the Amity Foundation Circle Tree Ranch, since 1981, an internationally acclaimed, dynamic, and innovative teaching community engaged in human services, social, and environmental justice. It's offering the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium Monday, December 1st from 1 to 5 p.m. It's 10500 East Tanque Road. Learn and engage for a spiritually fulfilling, environmentally sustainable, and socially just human presence on Earth. And we are really on the Jake Feinberg Show, very happy to have the Amity Foundation Circle Tree Ranch as my newest sponsor. And, part of really my show is I don't know anything. I know nothing. My job is to ask questions of other people of love, people of open heart, people who want to learn. And we accomplished that today. And Mr. Duncan, we'll have you back in studio before the end of the new year, okay?
All right, thank you for having me.
All right, man. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Go Wildcats. Peace.
So when you wake up in the morning,
You're a gig.
and ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it, you ain't got nothing but the blues no way, baby. Or either the old lady gonna do yakking you and arguing.
Southern Arizona's official station of the Arizona Cardinals. Power Talk 1210.